My son Joshua died in 2011, and everything sort of just changed overnight. And I'm reminded, Lizzie, of what it's like right now with COVID and how our lives have changed again. I'm wondering if you're noticing similarities yourself.
In talking to a lot of other bereaved parents in the last few weeks, there are some themes that seem to come up. One of them is the fact that we're all isolated at the moment, and I know a lot of other bereaved people have said that, they felt very isolated through grief, and I know I have at times. And, I wonder if we already possibly have a toolkit to deal with some of these points about coronavirus, don't we, that we've learned already.
Once the funeral was over and life was supposedly back to normal, there was a sort of loneliness that crept in. And this time, though it's hard not to be able to see family and friends and children and grandchildren, it's like the worst has already happened and you've kind of adapted to that in a way, and that you know that you'll see them again, and in many ways that feels like something to celebrate rather than to grieve. And that's been a bit of an eye-opener for me, because it hurts my heart not to be able to see important people, but on the other hand, I know I'll see them again. So it gives you a perspective.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, I don't know, I found so much synergy in all of this. I found that I panicked a couple of weeks ago. I thought I was really well prepared for it with what I've been through before and the rug being pulled from under my feet. But actually in that first week, I realised I wasn't prepared at all. And I think there were triggers that went off for me and I found it really difficult. But then as I think what you just said, that sense of this will pass and there will be possibly a new normal. I believe that more and more at the moment. I feel now that I can be in the present more. And I know when my son Harry died, that was one of the things I had to really work on, because I constantly would look back and I would look forward too far. And the only time I could actually really be at ease with my thoughts was when I was more present and I tried to just be in the present moment and I could calm. And that feels like the best way of learning how to deal with coronavirus as well.
I get what you're saying, something about overthinking it. In the early stages of grief after our sons died, I guess from what you're saying, you did what I did. So much overthinking, so much anxiety, so much panic. Whereas this time it's like, this is how it is. How best can I manage? How best can I steady myself in the moment, in this day? And that's really helpful, because it's so easy to forget to breathe when you're in such a state of, I suppose, not knowing. Because this is about not knowing. When will I see the people I love again? I don't know, but it's very different from when your child dies and you think, I'm never going to see that person again. So I think the heads up, the kind of preparedness is fascinating for me, because I don't feel anxious and I don't feel panicked, because, this is nothing compared to what we went through before.
One of the effects I've found long-term, 20 years on, in my grief over my son, is that I can't trust the universe. Normally, I can't. I've found, in the last 20 years, I've found it incredibly hard to look more than maybe 6 months ahead, I would say. I can't really look forward more than that. So as soon as someone starts talking about next year, in any normal situation, I slightly blank out, because since he died, I've never been able to trust that we'll all be here or that something catastrophic won't have happened. And I do think that's quite a symptom for a lot of people who've been through a major trauma, isn't it? And I don't actually feel it's a negative, because we're always told we should live in the present more anyway, aren't we? So actually, I just naturally do because of what's happened.
Though we're distanced from our children forever, we've kind of had time to internalize them within ourselves, and that's the kind of, and find ways of continuing that relationship external to them being alive or dead. And I suppose the thing about social distancing is, I mean, physical distancing and social distancing are completely different, aren't they?
Very much so.
And in many ways, we are physically separate from our children, but we're not emotionally separate from our children, because we've learned that you don't have to be. But how long did that take us?
Quite a long time.
I mean, you know, the first few years, you know, I couldn't get over this idea. Where was Josh? How could I make him sort of internalize his presence in my life? How could I carry him forward? When this first kicked off, I felt anxious because I thought everybody is grieving, and I was kind of panic-stricken for a moment because I thought I don't want to be grieving again. And what's been really comfortable for me is to think to myself, grief doesn't frighten me anymore. I'm not frightened of it, because I suppose for the last 9 years I've been practicing how to integrate it, how to manage it, how to cope with it, how to make new social relationships, how to let go of old social relationships that either didn't welcome me or I didn't welcome. And so I haven't felt as calm as this for a very long time. I feel kind of oddly at peace. I mean, it is terrible what's happening for lots of people, but for me, it's not the worst. The worst has already happened.
In relation to coronavirus, I certainly was in disbelief at the beginning, I think. I was quite shocked, but I think I very soon found some sort of acceptance of the situation. And I certainly do think there's meaning in it. I think the world needed a reset. I think we weren't listening to global warming, and now we are, because the planes have stopped, and all sorts of things, elements of life are regenerating. And that feels very familiar to me, because I think that's how I felt after the years of being a full-time carer and then going through bereavement. There was a sense of awful loss, but also regeneration and living, looking forward and living in the present at the same time somehow, and finding a reason to live and to go on, and we will all do that. And I think in some ways life might be better going forwards. Hopefully we'll lose some of the things we didn't need.